The day they came aboard, everyone on the ship held their breath. Stood at the back of the welcome party, watching the airlock doors slide open. She had read the reports. She had seen the pictures, but nothing prepared her for the real thing. They were massive, 7 feet tall, covered in dark fur that seemed to swallow light. Their eyes were amber, bright like fire, and their claws clicked against the metal floor with each step. They moved like hunters. Every motion was smooth and dangerous. Captain stepped forward with a smile that looked painful. "Welcome aboard the Horizon's Edge. We are honored to host the delegation." The lead was called. He was bigger than the others, with silver streaks in his fur and scars across his face. He did not smile. His species did not smile. He simply nodded once and spoke in a voice like rolling thunder. "We are here for diplomacy, nothing more." Behind, 3 smaller figures appeared. Cubs, children. They were half the size of the adults, with softer fur and wider eyes. They looked around the ship with curiosity and fear. Felt her heart soften immediately. The crew kept their distance in the following days. There were predators. Everyone knew the stories. They had never lost a war. They hunted in packs. They could smell fear. The humans walked carefully around them, never making sudden movements, never meeting their eyes. But was different. As the ships, she was assigned to study biology. The cubs were her main subjects. She was supposed to observe them from a distance, take notes, write reports. Safe, clinical work. On the 3rd day, she broke that rule. The youngest cub was called. He was small and curious, always wandering away from the adults to explore the ship. That morning found him in the cargo bay, crying softly. He had cut his paw on a sharp piece of metal. 2 adult guards stood nearby, snarling at anyone who came close. Their message was clear: stay away. Ignored them. She walked straight toward, her footsteps calm and steady. The guards growled louder. One of them stepped forward, claws extended. "Human," he warned, "do not touch the cub." Met his eyes. She was not brave by nature. Her hands were shaking. But she had spent her whole life studying alien species, and she knew one thing for certain. Children were children, no matter what planet they came from. "He is hurt," she said simply. "I can help." She knelt down beside. The little cub flinched at first, his amber eyes wide with surprise. No alien had ever come this close before. No alien had ever looked at him without fear. Pulled a small medical kit from her pocket. She cleaned the wound gently, wrapped it in soft bandages, and the whole time she hummed a quiet song. It was a lullaby her mother used to sing. The melody was soft and warm. "Stop crying." He stared at her with wonder. "There," said, finishing the bandage, "all better." Looked at his paw, then back at her. For a long moment he did not move. Then very slowly he pressed his forehead against her hand. In culture, this was a sign of trust, a sign of pack. The guards watched in silence. They did not know what to say. Word spread quickly through the delegation. The human female had touched a cub. She had helped him. She had not been afraid. Ambassador summoned to his quarters that evening. She expected anger. She expected to be told to stay away from his children. Instead, simply studied her with those bright amber eyes. "Why did you help him?" he asked. Considered the question carefully. Because he was hurt, because he was scared, because someone needed to. "We are predators," said. "Your species fears us. This is natural, this is correct." "Maybe," agreed, "but is not a predator, not yet. He is a child, and children deserve kindness, not fear." Was silent for a long time. Finally, he nodded once. "You may continue your observations. The cubs seem to tolerate you." It was not permission, it was not approval, but it was enough. Over the following weeks became a constant presence in the cubs' lives. Was the eldest, 4 cycles old, which was equal to 8 human years. She was serious and watchful, always standing between her siblings and any perceived threat. Was the middle child, quiet and thoughtful with eyes that seemed to see everything. And was the youngest, full of energy and mischief. They were supposed to be dangerous. They were supposed to be future warriors. But they were just kids. She taught them human games. She showed them how to play catch with a soft ball. She introduced them to puzzles and coloring books and silly songs. At first, the cubs were confused. Children were trained for combat, not play. But slowly, carefully, they began to enjoy themselves. Learned their language too. Speech was full of growls and clicks and sounds that human throats were not designed to make. But she practiced every night until she could say simple phrases. Hello, goodbye, are you hungry? I am here. The cubs were amazed. No alien had ever bothered to learn their tongue before. One night had a nightmare. He woke up screaming, claws out, thrashing in his sleep. The adult did not know how to comfort him. Comfort was not their way. So ran through the ship, crying until he found quarters. She opened her door to find a terrified cub shaking in the hallway. Without a word, she let him inside. She wrapped him in a warm blanket, sat him on her bed, and held him until the shaking stopped. She did not ask what the nightmare was about. She did not need to know. She simply stayed. By morning, and had joined them. The 3 cubs slept in a pile around, their soft fur warm against her skin, their breathing slow and peaceful. From that night forward, the cubs slept in her quarters whenever they were scared. The adults did not understand. Humans were prey. Humans were weak. Why would the cubs seek comfort from such a fragile creature? But the cubs knew something the adults did not. Was not weak. She was strong in a different way. Her strength was not in her claws or her fangs. It was in her heart. One evening, approached with a serious expression. The eldest cub had been watching her for weeks, studying her, trying to understand. "Why are you not afraid of us?" asked. Smiled, she reached out and gently touched his cheek. The cub did not flinch. She had grown used to his touch. "Should I be afraid?" asked back. "Yes," said honestly. "We are dangerous. We are hunters. Our claws can kill." "I know," said, "but you have never tried to hurt me. You have never threatened me. You are children, dangerous children maybe, but still children, and I have never been afraid of children." Was quiet for a long moment. She did not fully understand this human. She did not understand kindness without purpose, gentleness without weakness. But she understood one thing. This human had cared for her when no one else would. This human had held her brother through his nightmares. This human had learned their language, played their games, and treated them like they mattered. Made a decision that night. She did not tell anyone, she did not even tell, but deep in her heart she made a promise. She would protect this strange, soft creature. No matter what happened, no matter who tried to hurt her, would stand between in danger. Because that was what Pack did. And somehow, without either of them realizing it, had become Pack. 3 months passed aboard the horizon's edge, and everything changed. The cubs followed everywhere now. When she walked to the research lab, 3 small shadows walked behind her. When she ate in the cafeteria, 3 furry bodies sat at her table. When she worked late into the night, 3 pairs of amber eyes watched her from the corner of the room. The crew had grown used to it. Some of them even found it funny. The security chief laughed every time he saw them together. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a quick smile. "You know," he said one day, "you have the most dangerous bodyguards in the galaxy. I almost feel bad for anyone who makes you angry." Smiled and shook her head. "They are not bodyguards, they are just kids." But noticed how growled when anyone spoke harshly too. He noticed how positioned himself between and strangers. He noticed how even little bared his teeth at anyone who got too close. They were kids, yes, but they were also predators, and predators protected their pack. Had discovered something troubling during her research. The ship's food synthesizers could not create proper nutrition for biology. The cubs were slowly becoming weak. Their fur was dull. Their energy was low. The adult had not noticed because they were too busy with diplomatic meetings. So fixed it herself. Every evening she went to the kitchen and prepared special meals by hand. She researched dietary needs. She found protein-rich foods that the cubs could digest. She spent hours cooking, testing, adjusting until she got it right. The cubs ate better than they had in months. Their fur became shiny again. Their eyes became bright. They ran and played with new energy. Notice the change. He asked his children what was different. "Feeds us," said happily. "She makes special food just for us." Did not know what to say. In culture, preparing food for another's children was a sacred act. It meant you were claiming responsibility for them. It meant you considered them family. Did this human understand what she was doing? Did she know the weight of her actions? He decided not to ask. Some things were better left unspoken. The trouble started when the ship entered space. The Warren species. They had 6 legs, hard shells, and acid that could burn through metal. They hated both humans and they considered everyone else inferior, worthy only of destruction. Captain tried to navigate around their territory, but there was no safe path. They had to pass through. For 3 days, everyone was tense. The warriors prepared their weapons. The human crew ran emergency drills. The cubs were told to stay in their quarters and not wander. They did not listen, of course. They stayed with. On the 4th day, the attack came. It happened without warning. One moment the ship was quiet. The next moment alarms were screaming and the walls were shaking. Raiders had breached the hull. They were inside. Grabbed the cubs and ran. The corridors were chaos. Crew members rushed past them, shouting orders, carrying weapons. The lights flickered. Smoke filled the air. Somewhere in the distance heard gunfire and screaming. "Stay close to me," she told the cubs. "Do not let go." Took the lead, her young eyes scanning every shadow. Held's paw, keeping his little brother calm. They moved as a unit, trusting to guide them. They almost made it to the safe zone. The soldier appeared from nowhere. It was huge, nearly 8 feet tall, with a black shell and mandibles dripping with acid. Its many eyes focused on the small group in the corridor. It clicked its mandibles. The sound was hungry. Did not think, she did not plan, she simply acted. She pushed the cubs behind her and spread her arms wide, blocking them with her body. She had no weapon. She had no armor. She was a scientist, not a soldier. But she stood her ground. "Run," she said to the cubs. Her voice was shaking. "Run and find the security team. I will hold it here." "No," said immediately. "We will not leave you." "Please." The attacked. It raised one of its limbs and fired a stream of acid. Did not move. She did not dodge. She kept her body between the acid and the children. The acid hit her shoulder and chest. The pain was unlike anything she had ever felt. It burned through her uniform, through her skin, through her flesh. She screamed. She fell to her knees. But even then, even as her vision went white with agony, she kept her arms spread wide. She would not let them touch the cubs. Something inside broke. She had never felt rage like this before. It was hot and cold at the same time. It filled her entire body. It erased every thought except one. "Kill!" Screamed. It was not a human sound. It was not even a normal sound. It was the battle cry of a predator whose pack had been hurt. It echoed through the corridor like thunder. Her claws extended, her eyes went dark, and she attacked. She was only 4 cycles old. She was still a child. But she was a child born from 1,000 generations of apex predators. The instincts were in her blood. She hit like a missile. Her claws tore through its shell. Her teeth found the soft flesh beneath. The soldier tried to fight back but was too fast, too furious. Joined her a second later. Then, 3 small predators against a full-grown warrior. The never stood a chance. When more soldiers came, the cubs did not retreat. They stood over his fallen body, drenched in green blood, snarling at anything that moved. Their fur was matted with gore. Their eyes were wild. They were not children anymore. They were protectors, and his security team arrived 5 minutes later. They had fought through a dozen to reach this corridor. They expected to find bodies. Instead, they found 3 small standing guard over an unconscious human woman. 8 soldiers lay dead around them, torn apart with brutal efficiency. Stopped in his tracks, he had been a soldier for 20 years. He had seen many battles, but he had never seen anything like this. Looked up at him, her face was covered in blood, her claws were still extended, but her voice was calm. "She is hurt," said in broken human standard. The words were difficult for her throat to form, but she forced them out anyway. "Save her." Nodded slowly. He understood. These cubs had just killed 8 enemy soldiers to protect 1 human woman. They would not let anyone else near her. "We need to get her to medical," he said carefully. "Can we approach?" Studied him for a long moment. Then she stepped aside just slightly, just enough to let the medics through. "Help her," said, "or we kill you too." It was not a threat, it was a fact, believed every word. The medics rushed forward. They lifted onto a stretcher. Her wounds were severe. The acid had eaten through muscle and bone. Her breathing was shallow. Her heartbeat was weak. As they carried her away, the cubs followed. "Try to stop them. You should stay here, let the adults handle." Turned and looked at him. Her eyes were still dark with rage. "She is Pack," she said. "We do not leave Pack." Stepped aside. The cubs followed all the way to the medical bay. They did not speak. They did not cry. They simply walked side by side, ready to fight anyone who tried to stop them. Their mother had died when they were young. Their father was always busy with politics. They had never known what it felt like to be truly loved. Until... And now she was dying. Made another promise that night. If survived, she would never let her get hurt again. She would train harder, fight better, become stronger. She would be worthy of protecting her pack. And if died, did not let herself think about that. She could not. The thought was too painful to bear. So she walked, and she waited, and she prayed to whatever gods might be listening. Please let her live. The medical bay was cold and white and full of machines. Lay on a table in the center of the room, surrounded by doctors and equipment. Her body was covered with tubes. Her face was pale like paper. The monitors beeped in a steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. Each sound meant she was still alive. The cub stood outside the glass wall, watching. Worked faster than he had ever worked before. He was the ship's medical officer, trained for emergencies, but this was different. The acid had damaged his lung. It had eaten through her shoulder. She had lost so much blood that her heart was struggling to pump. "I need more plasma," he shouted, "and someone get me the regeneration unit, now." His team moved around him in controlled chaos. They had never seen wounds like this. Human bodies were not built to survive acid burns. The fact that was still breathing was a miracle. Outside the glass pressed her paw against the window. She could see everything. She could see the blood. She could see the damage. She could see the fear on the doctors' faces. "She will live," said quietly. He was trying to convince himself as much as his siblings. "She has to live." Did not speak. He simply stared at its face, his small body trembling. An hour passed, then 2. The surgery continued. Approached the cubs carefully. "You should eat something," he said. "You should rest. The doctors will tell us when." No, did not look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on, "We stay." It could be hours, it could be all night. "We stay." Sighed. He had seen stubborn before, but this was something else entirely. These cubs had made their decision. Nothing would change their minds. He posted guards at both ends of the corridor. Not to keep the cubs in, but to keep everyone else out. Anyone who wanted to cause trouble would have to go through his team first. Ambassador arrived near midnight. He had been in meetings when the attack happened. By the time he reached the medical bay, the battle was over and his children were covered in blood. He had never seen them like this. He had never seen that look in their eyes. "You killed 8 soldiers," he said to. His voice was neutral. In culture, killing enemies was not shameful, it was expected. "You fought well." "We protected our pack," replied. Paused. "She is not pack, she is human." Finally turned to look at her father. Her eyes were hard. "She fed us when we were hungry. She held us when we were scared. She stood in front of acid to keep us safe." Her voice rose. "If that is not pack, then I do not know what pack means." Had no answer to that. "Come with me," he said finally. "Return to our quarters, the adults will." "No." The word hung in the air. Had never disobeyed her father before. In society, the alpha's word was law. Children did not argue. Children did not refuse. But was not just a child anymore. "She bled for us," said. "We stay." Stepped forward to stand beside his sister. Then, the 3 cubs formed a line facing their father, united in their decision. Looked at his children for a long moment. He saw their mother in them. She had been stubborn too. She had been fierce. Without another word, he turned and walked away. Word spread through the ship quickly. The human scientist had been wounded saving the cubs. The cubs had killed 8 enemy soldiers in revenge, and now they refused to leave her side. The crew did not know what to think. Humans and were not supposed to care about each other. They were too different. Their cultures were too far apart. There were hunters, predators, warriors. The humans were prey, weak, soft. But those cubs loved that human woman. Everyone could see it. Around 2 in the morning, crew members began leaving gifts outside the medical bay. Food for the cubs, flowers for, cards with messages of hope. The pile grew larger with each passing hour. The delegation watched in confusion. They did not understand this behavior. In their culture, you mourned the dead with silence. You did not leave flowers. You did not write cards. But they watched, and they wondered. Healer Myra was the delegation's physician. She was old and proud and had never thought much of humans. They were weak creatures. They broke easily. They were not worth her attention. She stood at the edge of the corridor, observing the surgery through the glass, and his team were struggling. They did not have the right equipment. They did not have enough experience with these kinds of wounds. Myra could help. Medicine was more advanced in some areas. She knew techniques that could save the human's life. But why should she? Humans were beneath her, they were prey. Then she looked at the cubs. Was pressing her forehead against the glass, whispering something too soft to hear. Was holding his brother, both of them shaking with fear. Was crying silently, tears streaming down his furry face. These were children of her people, noble children, future warriors. And they were breaking because a human might die. Myra made her decision. She walked to the medical bay doors and pushed them open. Looked up startled. "This area is restricted, you cannot." "I am a healer," Myra said coldly. "I can help. Will you accept my assistance or will you let her die?" Hesitated for only a second, then he nodded. "Tell me what to do." They worked together for the next 6 hours. Human medicine and medicine combined, had the technology. Myra had the knowledge. Together they rebuilt shoulder, repaired her lung, and replaced the blood she had lost. It was delicate, exhausting work. Several times they thought they had lost her. Several times her heart stopped and they had to shock it back to life. Each time flatlined, the cubs howled. The sound was terrible. It echoed through the medical bay, through the corridors, through the entire ship. It was the sound of young predators mourning, the sound of children losing their mother. Crew members stopped what they were doing and listened. Some of them cried. They did not know well, but they knew that sound. They knew what it meant. Loss, pain, grief. At 9 in the morning, after 9 hours of surgery, finally stepped back from the table. His hands were shaking. His face was covered in sweat. "She is stable," he announced. "The damage has been repaired, now we wait." Myra nodded silently. She was exhausted too. She had not worked this hard in years. Outside the glass, the cubs collapsed against each other. The tension drained from their bodies all at once. They were tired beyond words. They had not eaten. They had not slept. They had stood watch for over 9 hours. But was alive. Pressed her forehead against the glass one more time. "Stay," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse. "We need you, please stay." Did not respond. She was still unconscious, would be for many hours, but her heart was beating. Her lungs were breathing. The monitors beeped in a steady rhythm. Beep, beep, beep. The sound of life. Brought blankets for the cubs. He did not try to move them. He simply covered them where they sat and let them rest. As he walked away, he passed standing in the shadows. "Your children love her," said quietly. Did not respond for a long moment. His amber eyes were fixed on the 3 small figures huddled outside the medical bay. "Yes," he said finally, "they do." "Is that a problem?" Considered the question. In truth, he did not know. We're not supposed to love outsiders. They were not supposed to form bonds with prey species. It went against everything his people believed. But watching his children defend that human woman, watching them refuse to leave her side, watching them grieve at the thought of losing her. Maybe everything his people believed was wrong. "No," said quietly, "it is not a problem." He walked away, leaving his children to their vigil. Tomorrow there would be questions. Tomorrow there would be politics and complications and difficult conversations. But tonight, 3 small cubs kept watch over the woman who had loved them when no one else would. And that was enough. Woke up slowly, like rising from deep water. At first there was only darkness. Then there was pain, dull and distant like an echo of something terrible. Then there was warmth, soft and heavy, pressing against her from all sides. She opened her eyes. 3 cubs were curled around her hospital bed. Lay at her right side, one paw resting on his arm. Was at her feet, his head on her ankle. Was somehow squeezed between and the bed rail, his small body tucked against her hip. They were all asleep. Their breathing was slow and peaceful. Smiled. The movement hurt, but she did not care. "You stayed," she whispered. His eyes snapped open immediately. For a moment she simply stared, as if she could not believe what she was seeing. Then her whole body relaxed, and she made a sound had never heard before. It was soft and high, almost like singing. Joy, pure joy. "You are awake," breathed. "You are alive." The noise woke, and they scrambled up the bed, pressing their faces against his neck, her cheeks, her hair. They were crying. We're not supposed to cry, but the cubs did not care. The tears came anyway. "We thought you were going to leave us," sobbed. "We thought you were going to die like Mother." The words hit like a punch. She had known the cubs' mother was dead, but she had never heard them talk about it. She had never realized how deep that wound still was. "Oh, little ones," she said softly. She tried to lift her arms to hold them, but her body was too weak, so she simply let them press against her, offering what comfort she could. "I am here. I am not going anywhere." "Promise?" asked. "Promise." Appeared in the doorway a few minutes later. His face was tired but relieved. "You scared us," he said. "You were in surgery for 9 hours. We almost lost you 3 times." "I am sorry for the trouble," said. Laughed. "Do not apologize. You saved 3 children. That is not trouble. That is heroism." He checked her vitals and adjusted her medication while the cubs watched his every move. They did not growl at him. They had learned to trust him during the long night of surgery. He had worked to save their human, and that made him an ally. After left told everything. The attack, the soldier, how it stood in front of them with nothing but her body as a shield. "You should not have done that," said. Her voice was strange. "You could have died." "You are children," replied. "I could not let them hurt you." "But we are predators. We are dangerous. We could have fought." "You are cubs," reached out and touched his face. The movement was painful, but she did it anyway. "My cubs, I will always protect you." was silent for a long moment. Then she pressed her forehead against palm. The gesture meant more than words ever could. Ambassador visited that afternoon. He stood in the doorway, stiff and formal, his amber eyes unreadable. The cubs watched him warily, remembering how he had tried to make them leave. "I wish to speak with the human," said, "alone." The cubs did not move. "It is all right," told them. "Go get some food, you must be hungry." Reluctantly, the cubs left, but they did not go far. Could see them hovering just outside the door, ready to return at the first sign of trouble. Walked to her bedside. For a long moment he simply looked at her. His expression was difficult to read. "You fed my children," he said finally. "You cared for them when they were scared. You learned our language. You treated them like they mattered." "They do matter," said. "Yes," his voice cracked slightly. "They do, but no one has ever shown them that before, not even me." He paused, struggling with his next words. "We're not good at expressing emotion. They were warriors, not poets." "Their mother died 2 years ago," continued. "I did not know how to help them. I did not know how to be what they needed, so I buried myself in work and left them alone." "You did your best," said gently. "No, I did not," shook his head. "I was a coward. I was afraid of their grief because it reminded me of my own, so I stayed away." He knelt beside her bed. In culture, this was a gesture of deep respect, a gesture usually reserved for elders and heroes. "You gave my children something I could not," said. "You showed them they are worthy of love. For that, I am forever in your debt." Did not know what to say. She had never expected gratitude. She had simply done what felt right. "Your children are easy to love," she said finally. "They just needed someone to show them how." Nodded, he rose to his feet, his dignity restored, but something in his eyes had changed. There was warmth there now, understanding. "The Galactic Council has called an emergency meeting," he said. "They wish to discuss what happened. There are those who want to give you an honor that has never been given to a non before." "What honor?" "Clan status." His voice was serious. "You would become one of us, officially, permanently. You would have all the rights and protections of a citizen." His breath caught. She knew what this meant. She had studied culture extensively. Clan status was sacred. It meant being accepted as family. "I do not know what to say," she admitted. "You do not have to decide now. The council will debate for several days." Paused at the door. "But know this. Whatever you choose, my children have already made their decision." He left without explaining what he meant. That evening, the cubs returned with something wrapped in cloth. They approached bed with unusual seriousness, their eyes bright and nervous. "We want to ask you something," said. "Something important." "Of course, ask me anything." Unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a small stone, smooth and black, carved with symbols. It was old, very old. The markings were worn from countless hands touching it over generations. "This belonged to our mother," explained. "It is a den stone. When a chooses a den mother, they give her this stone. It means she is family forever." His heart began to beat faster. She understood what was happening. "When we are grown," continued, "we will be warriors. We will have our own packs, but we will always need a den mother. Someone to come home to, someone who loves us no matter what we become." She held out the stone with trembling paws. "We want you to be our den mother, officially, forever." Stepped forward. "You do not have to say yes. We know you have family on Earth. We know you have a life there, but we wanted you to know how we feel." His eyes were wet with tears. "Please say yes, please be our mother." Looked at the 3 cubs standing before her. She thought about Earth. She thought about her parents, her friends, her career, everything she had worked for, everything she had known. Then she thought about these children, these strange, fierce, beautiful children who had chosen her, who had killed for her, who had stayed by her side when she was dying. She thought about what family really meant. "Yes," she said, her voice was thick with emotion. Yes, I will be your den mother." The cubs rushed forward and buried themselves against her, crying and laughing at the same time. The den stone pressed into his palm, warm from their touch. The ritual was performed the next day when was strong enough to sit up. It was ancient and solemn, and each pressed their foreheads against hers and spoke the sacred words. "Your blood is our blood, your enemies are our enemies, your life is ours to protect," spoke the words back to them. Her pronunciation was not perfect, but the cubs did not care. What mattered was the meaning behind the words. When it was done, they were family. Not by blood, not by species, but by choice. And sometimes realized choice was stronger than anything else. She held her children close and let herself cry. She had lost so much in her life, her dreams, her plans, her sense of belonging. But she had gained something more. She had gained a pack. 5 years later, the galaxy was a different place. Stood before the High Council, her fur sleek and dark, her amber eyes bright with purpose. She was 9 cycles old now, nearly full-grown, with the body of a warrior and the mind of a leader. Beside her stood. The human woman had changed in 5 years. There were silver streaks in her hair now. The scar on her shoulder had faded to a thin white line. She walked with the confidence of someone who belonged exactly where she was. She wore the formal robes of an ambassador, decorated with the symbols of 3 clans. Her children's clans, her family. "The council recognizes of clan," the High Elder announced. "She has completed her warrior trials. She has proven her strength. Today, she takes her place among the adults of our people." Bowed her head in acknowledgement. She had worked hard for this moment. She had trained every day, pushed herself beyond her limits, become the warrior she had promised to be. But none of it would have been possible without the woman standing beside her. The ceremony continued with ancient rituals and formal speeches. When it was finished, was officially an adult. She could lead her own pack. She could make her own choices. The first thing she did was turn to. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." Smiled and pressed her forehead against. The gesture had become natural over the years. "I am proud of you, little one, though I suppose I cannot call you little anymore. You can call me whatever you want. You are my den mother." They walked together through the grand halls of the, and were waiting outside, both grown now, both changed. Had become a healer, inspired by healer Myra, and he wore the robes of a medical apprentice, his calm eyes reflecting wisdom beyond his years. He had learned that strength was not always about fighting. Sometimes it was about saving. Was a scout, quick and clever, still playful but lethally skilled. He had his mother's mischief and his den mother's heart. He made friends everywhere he went, bringing and humans together with his easy charm. The 3 siblings embraced when they saw her. They were taller than her now, all of them. She had to stand on her toes to reach their faces. "My bobbies," she laughed. "When did you all get so big?" "When you were not looking," teased. They walked together through the city, and everywhere they went, people stared. It was not a hostile stare. It was wonder. The story of and her cubs had spread across the galaxy. It had changed everything. Humans were no longer seen as prey. They were seen as pack-worthy. The alliance between humans and had become the strongest in coalition history. Trade flourished. Cultural exchange programs. For the first time in centuries, both species looked at each other with respect instead of fear. Adopt a human had become a cultural phenomenon. Families across the welcomed human visitors, eager to learn from them. Human partnerships flourished in business, science, and art. All because one woman had chosen kindness over fear. The crew of the Horizon's Edge returned to the site of the old battle that year. A memorial had been built there, floating in space where they had attacked. It was a statue carved from asteroid stone. It showed a human woman standing with her arms spread wide, 3 small predators huddled behind her. Her face was determined. Her body was a shield. The plaque beneath it read, "She taught us that courage is not the absence of fear. It is love choosing to stand." Cried when she saw it. She had never wanted to be a hero. She had just wanted to protect her children. But sometimes heroes were made by accident. Sometimes the smallest acts of love created the biggest changes. Was there too, older now, retired from active duty. He stood beside and looked at the statue with pride. "You know," he said, "I always thought humans would prove themselves through technology or military power. I never imagined we would change the galaxy through this." "Through what?" asked. "Through being human," smiled. "Through caring about people who were different from us. Through treating monsters like children." "They were never monsters," said softly. "They just needed someone to see past the claws." A new crisis arose in the 10th year. A young species called that had made first contact with the coalition. They were small and fragile, with delicate wings and nervous eyes. The coalition labeled them potentially dangerous because they could release toxic spores when frightened. The council wanted to quarantine them. Some members wanted to destroy them entirely. Saw the fear in the council chambers. She remembered being afraid once too. She remembered what fear could make people do. She volunteered to lead the contact mission. It was beautiful but terrified. The small creatures hid when the coalition ship arrived. They expected violence. They expected death. Instead, walked alone into their central village. She was old now, her hair fully silver, her body bent by years of travel. But her eyes were still kind. Her voice was still gentle. They watched her from the shadows, trembling. Knelt down on the ground, making herself small. She held out her empty hands. "I am not here to hurt you," she said softly. "I am here to understand." A young child crept forward. Its wings were folded tight against its body. Its eyes were huge with fear. Smiled at it. The same smile she had given all those years ago, when he was just a scared cub with a hurt paw. "Hello, little one," she said. "What is your name?" The child did not answer, but it did not run away either. Behind, 3 adult warriors watched the scene, and had refused to let their den mother go alone. They stood at the edge of the village, their massive bodies still, their amber eyes alert. They were terrifying to look at. The villagers trembled at the sight of them. But the young child noticed something strange. The terrifying predators were not hunting. They were not threatening. They were simply watching the old human woman with expressions that looked almost like love. "Why do they follow her?" the child asked suddenly. Heard the question. She stepped forward slowly, carefully, making sure not to frighten the small creature. "Because she taught us what no one else could," said. Her voice was deep and gentle. "She taught us that strength is not about claws or fangs. It is about choosing to protect, choosing to love, choosing to stay." The child looked at, then back at. She stayed. She stayed. Eyes softened as she looked at her den mother. She stayed for us when she did not have to. She bled for us. She chose us as her family. The warrior knelt down beside the human woman, and suddenly they did not look so different. A protector and the one who taught her how to protect. "We will follow her to the end of the stars," continued. "And we will teach others what she taught us, that the galaxy does not have to be about fear. It can be about family if we are brave enough to choose it." The child was quiet for a long moment. Then, very slowly, it reached out and touched its outstretched hand. Smiled. "There," she said gently. "That was not so hard, was it?" Years later, when the history books were written, they would talk about first contact protocols and diplomatic strategies. They would analyze trade agreements and alliance structures. But they remembered something simpler. They remembered an old human woman who knelt in the dirt and offered her hand. They remembered 3 terrifying predators who watched her with love in their eyes. They remembered learning that family was not about species or blood. It was about choice. and had spent her entire life choosing love. That was her legacy, not the statues, not the treaties, not the history books. 3 children who grew up knowing they were worthy of love. And a galaxy that learned to choose kindness over fear. That was enough. That was everything.